Well, thank you everybody for coming out to the Pheonix Film Festival. What I want to do is I want to introduce you to my panelists. Then we're going to get to the subject, which is talking about indie film and how indie film can launch you into mainstream and what is mainstream anyway.
Hello, I'm Patrick Day. Thank you. And I travel with my own one-person fan club. I'm in Paul Osborne's favor, playing opposite this guy, who sells his favor. And I play the character of Marvin Crowe.
Well, I'm Blayne Weaver, and I'm in Paul Osborne's favor as well. And, thanks, guys. Yeah, and I think there's another screening of it tomorrow at like 2:30.
My name is John T. Woods, and I'm in Down and Dangerous, Zach Borsman's film, and we have one more screening. This is tomorrow at 11:35. So be there.
So it's wonderful. We've got actors here that other actors can learn from. How did you first get into acting? What was your first role? Or maybe when did you know you had the bug?
I guess my mother recounts the story of me knowing I had the bug when she woke up one Saturday morning and all of our neighbors were at our front door. I was like 6 years old, and I had gone around the neighborhood, and I grew up in Nashville, and I was passing out flyers to come see a show based on the Army men that I had set up. And my mother was a little upset about it because I gave her an Army helmet and made her take a nickel admission in order to come in and watch me talk about Army men in our living room. So.
Well, I started theater in Shreveport when I was 5 years old, and loved it, but I was also hyperactive, so it's like, where's the line between, just moving at a high RPM and actually, liking the craft. And auditioned out of Dallas, which is a market that's not far from Shreveport, and booked a job when I was about 17 that was an NBC Movie of the Week when they used to do those kind of things, and it was a disaster movie of some kind. And I got to go to Australia and shoot this movie, and it was just eye-opening, life-changing. It was everything that I think you think acting is going to be, and it was real, and it was and that was it. And I've been chasing that dragon pretty much ever since.
You guys got good stories. I started late in the game. I'm 33, and I didn't really legitimately capture the bug, so to speak, until my junior year of college. I was a computer science and archaeology major, and with those majors, you have to take some fine arts credits. So I had to take appreciation of acting, like acting 101 type class, and they make you audition for a play. And so I auditioned for Steve Martin's Picasso at the La Pina Gil, and I got a call back. I didn't know what that was. So I called my mom and I said, hey, I'm in a play. And she's like, that's great. I mean, well, we're not gonna come down for it, but it's too far, it's gonna fly. So I went to a callback and I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of people in this play. And everyone was reading, and I thought, what do we do now? Do we start? And did the callback, blew it, didn't know what I was doing at all, and failed. But I had more fun in that audition than I did in the last 2 years of college, and I realized I should probably be doing something like this for a job if I can somehow figure out how to do that. So I focused on acting my last 2 years of college, graduated, and immediately drove from UNLV out to Los Angeles with no friends, no contacts, no money, and terrified. And now it's a decade later.
Now, did any of you ever you said you did extra work in film as a way to break in. Did any of you ever do extra work?
I'm gonna chime in, yeah. I did, when I got to LA, I got a job immediately at Starbucks in Brentwood, just in a nice part of LA, and where I didn't live. But yeah, so I started doing that. I did that for about a year, and I won an award. I got something called Partner of the Quarter, which is basically Employee of the Month for 3 months kind of thing. It's no big deal, don't worry. But
3 months in a row.
Yeah, 3 months in a row. And when that started happening, I started going, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm getting too good at working at Starbucks. And so I started working extra work. I started, and this is back before, gosh, I can't believe I'm saying stuff like this. This is back before digital submissions, electronic submissions. Yeah. I had to get my headshot and resume together and a cover letter to basically sign up for extra work for a movie called Seabiscuit, the horse movie. And yeah, I went and did non-union extra work, which at that time was like $58 for 10 hours of work. So I was losing money doing this and getting up every day and driving out. And the one thing I remember from extra work was there was this huge scene of extras sitting in the stands having to cheer for the horses. And they didn't have enough people, even though there was like 2,000 of us. So they ordered all these armless dummies that you could blow up with air, and they stuck them in the stands between all of us and put hats on them, and said, all right, just cheer extra hard because it makes the group look really big. And I remember one of the PAs dropping one of these dummies, and the AD going, careful with those, they're worth more than the extras. And, so I did that for 2 years. And then I didn't have to do it again. My progress was kind of like it's an upward slope, but it was very slow.
What I'd like to do now is ask you what you love about indie film and how you think it personally helped your career.
I'm not really sure if I know exactly what independent film is anymore, because you can have conversations with folks and it seems like half the time you say, well, what do you think independent film is? Like, I used to work for a company called Millennium Films. And for 15 years, they called themselves the largest independent film company in the world. And their low budgets, or the budgets they were doing, were like $15 million. And all they ever tried to do was cast A-list that would sell easily in Germany or in Southeast Asia, because it was all by the numbers, like who can bank here and when. It was easy. So what I consider independent film is working with folks like the Sabi Company, which is the company that made Down and Dangerous, and they are also my very good friends. I owe a lot to Zach Forsman. I mean, I owe a lot to, he's a really good friend, and the fact is he trusted me enough with Down and Dangerous to give me an opportunity to carry a film, like you had said, to carry a feature like this. And what's so great about working on an independent film like Down and Dangerous is that I feel like every day was like being a kid, like when we used to go shoot back in the woods, except for we had the means and the ways to get it done the way we wanted to do it. It was just like being a kid every day and what we always wanted. And so I think that there is the independent film bridges the gap between struggling very, very difficultly, in a difficult manner artistically, and where we potentially want to be, wherever that might be, A-list, or I don't know, people want to be stars and stuff, and if I could go to work every day and make a film like Down and Dangerous every day, all year round, I could die happy, honestly. And so independent films to thank.
Yeah, no, I think he's absolutely right. I think if I had not gotten involved in independent film, I would at best be doing commercials and guest spots right now. I acted and did pretty well doing those things for a while, and I just wasn't happy with the auditions I was getting, just like you were saying. And so I decided to write a movie. And that movie ended up being made, and it was called Manic, and it starred Don Cheadle and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel, and like all of a sudden I'm a screenwriter. I just wrote a part for me to act in, and IFC decided that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was more important than me, so I took a smaller part in that movie, but that made me a screenwriter. So then I started writing and making money doing that, and I didn't like the director of that project because I just thought, he's kind of an idiot, I could do that, and so I did, and I started directing. And like, to me, the line of where independent film is, it's like we start taking it personal, it's like, I've worked for Millennium.
Yeah, I know you did.
We'll talk about that. But that's the thing, it's like doing it yourself. And we have so much power right now with the digital, film and everything being less expensive that, we can actually go out there and do art, It's like I've directed a couple of features myself, and like getting to do this movie that we, was written for us by Paul. I mean, as an actor, it's like, come on, man, there's nothing better than like, hey, here's a script that's really tight and really smart, and both of the parts are like kind of well, I'm not going to give away the movie, but they're tortured, great parts, that any actor is like, oh, I want to play that. And that was written for us. That's independent film, and then we did it for, nothing. We went on Kickstarter and raised some money, and then we're here. That's independent film to me. And it's like, you can call whatever you want, Millennium or Little Miss Sunshine. They do good work, but it's just not the same as when people are sweating blood, to make something good. But independent film is why I'm sitting here.
I concur. Nothing else to add other than the fact that like this process, what we just finished, was so fun because it really was a team. It was a small team, and one of the things that's different from working on a bigger budget movie is personally, there's a lot less ego involved, and nobody's stepping on each other's toes, and you're sort of working out together and going to camp together. And that's something that I really loved about this particular process.
Well, we all love indie film, or we would not be here, but there's got to be some sacrifices that come along with that. What are some of the personal sacrifices that you had to make, some of the trade-offs to be involved with such a passionate type of industry?
Yeah, it's a lot less like punching a time card. You know, when you're working on something you're passionate about. That and I missed my big trailer. Totally did.
No, I missed the big trailer. Come on.
I missed Blayne's
big trailer's awesome. No, well, I mean, you know. Okay, so I have friends that are my age, and they just have different lives, and some of them think, you know, Blayne, what are you doing, you know? And some of them are just like envious. But it's like about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I guess, when I started directing, I was doing really well in TV and all that stuff and making some money, and I had a house, and I wanted to direct a movie, so I sold the house to finance the movie. And that was a bad financial decision. I would caution anyone against doing that. Apparently, the government taxes things. I don't know. I'm still unclear about exactly why I had no money for 3 years, but I had no money. Like negative, like more than no money. I had. It was a bad time, but after that, I was a director. You know what I mean? And that was my first feature, and I've directed 3 since. That to me is worth the trade-off. If it's not worth it to you, that kind of trade-off, maybe you're in the wrong business, because it's not nice. You know, it's like it's ugly and hard, and you know, in ways I feel like not that it should be, but it's worth it. Like, you know, when we get to do a job where for 6 weeks we run around with people that we think are awesome, and you know, play guns like we did when we were 15 or 15. I was very. I still do it. No, but 10. I don't know. I don't have kids. Anyways, but it's like that's a huge place to be standing. You know, those moments are like they're worth some instability to me. Not to everyone.
So you're saying you have a lot of instability in your life?
I say that, I don't, the money that I should have put forth and bought a condo is in my second movie, and I'm really proud. I'm more proud of that than I am of the nice throw rug that I could have gotten, but that does mean that it comes with a certain amount of like, oh, I got a check for this writing job. That's fantastic. I should do a short. As opposed to, maybe I should get that stability thing.
And you do miss the mailbox money too when you're doing this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
The residuals are always nice on a bigger budget thing.
Yeah. You're right.
But to trade that for passion is certainly not worth it, at least to me.
Well, the idea I always have is if you keep doing the passion, eventually the passions are going to pay residuals. But yeah, the independent film world needs to figure that out.
There's free chips and salsa, I think.
Yeah, I'm in on it.
It's like a take on do what you love and the money will follow, right? Sort of
Yes.
thing.
Hypothetically.
Right, it's not really true. Apparently.
Apparently.
I have this billboard near my house that says, it's near the New Beverly, and it says, be happy with nothing and you'll be happy with everything. And I drive by it a lot when I see it, and I feel like, I'm not there yet, but I feel like it's a really, I think it's a really good way to live, or at least consider living simply. And I most certainly live way below my means as far as, living in my apartment, and I decided early on that I really don't want for much. I don't want a lot of things, and I don't want a lot of stuff. It's kind of corny. I kind of want my freedom to make the choices I want to make, and then to go do the things I want to do. And I'm really, really lucky that I have a good mom and dad that just have a really good work ethic. And my dad works in lumber, my mom works in sales up in Oregon, and they're going to work until they die from it, just because financial situations and how the government works, that thing. There's no money, nobody has money apparently, so they have to work until they die. And you would think that because of that situation, my folks would be scared for me, or they'd say things like, oh, you'd better, but they never ever do. They say, when I get down, when I get a little nervous about things, they always say stuff like, what are you scared of? Like, what's the worst that could happen? And I sit there, I go, well, I don't know, I could die. How about that? And she's like, don't be ridiculous. Like, you're never going to run out of money. If you ever need to get a job, like FedEx will always hire, or UPS. You know, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to starve. But I guarantee you, if you give up doing what you love, you are going to hate yourself, and you're going to be 60 and bitter, and you're going to take it out on people, and people aren't going to want to be around you, and you're going to smell bad. It's like a whole thing.
Well, you could always go back to Starbucks.
There's a lot of sacrifices that for this. You spend a lot of time alone. It's a very social business, but I'm alone a lot of the time. So I spend a lot of time by yourself. So I don't know. Sacrifices that are worthwhile though. For this, it's worth it.
So my question to you is, that billboard with that great quote, what were they advertising?
Right?
It's like a piece of street art. Like somebody put it illegally actually up.
So that's what it is. Okay. It's up on the billboard illegally. So it looks like they're selling something, but there it is.
They're selling happiness.
They're selling happiness. They're selling a way of life, and it's pretty good. You know, because in this town, not in this town, maybe in this town too, but in LA, people love to talk about what they have and, you know, what they're getting next and all the stuff they've done, and I don't know. It's a little tiresome.
There's also sacrifice in doing a job you hate, and I've certainly done plenty of those in order to follow my passion. And that sacrifice to me is much worse, not doing what I love to do and showing up and punching that clock at a job I hate, than the other sacrifice, which is following your passion. And now, you know, I'm at a point in my life where I found a job that I actually love that feeds me as well, but it took a while, and I've done some pretty ugly jobs along the way. But for me, the acting and the working and the directing and the writing has always fueled that.
So does this mean you won't be returning to Chippendales in Vegas?
If they'll have me, Faith.
Isn't that the job you love?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so if they'll have me still at this point.
What do you see happening in your future? What are your future goals? And do you see independent film continuing to be a part of that?
What I was saying earlier is that you can actually control it, you know, which is great. I mean, I would love to, you know, book a huge movie that'll be on 2,000 screens, you know, tomorrow. But as soon as I finish shooting that, I'm going to go off and make my next movie. And I think we're in a great time for independent film, where it hasn't been like this since, you know, the early 70s, where, you know, young guys who didn't have, you know, 2 pennies to rub together a couple of weeks before were now the hot shots, you know, that were getting the keys to the kingdom. And we have it not because the studio system is changing, but because we can buy this camera right here that Paul's shooting on and make a movie, you know? And I mean, I gotta be honest, the things that I am most proud of are the things that have, you know, it's taken all of our friends together to make it happen. But I mean, that's independent film too, you know, and hopefully it'll lead to something else. But if it doesn't, it can still be self-sustaining. You know, it's like I just finished my last movie and it's coming out on DVD in May. So that means that I'm closing the door on that and I start raising money for the next movie. And in raising money for it, you get paid if that happens. You know, it's a little riskier, but I think I mentioned that's how I do.
Do you think that there's a throw rug in your future?
I mean, I hope so. But I have said before that, you know, I'll never have savings, because I feel like every time I get savings, there's another project that just sounds so cool, you know, and you know, nobody's going to mention my throw rug in my obituary, you know, but that 4th film that hasn't been made yet, you know, that may be something that is my life's work. You never know.
Well, what I hope for the near future, the next 2 years, short-term goals, I'd like to book a recurring or series regular on a TV show that's decent, like a hour drama, half-hour comedy. If anyone's interested, cast me in those things. But that would be great. But much like my folks, I'm gonna work until I die from it. It's just that I'm gonna make it this, rather than something I hate. And yeah, and independent film, I'm gonna work with Zach and Kevin and Jamie and Sam. I'm gonna work with the Sabi company for as long as they let me, you know, for as long as we're friends. So I look forward to making cool independent films that audiences like, for as long as the world lets us do it.
So guys, I'd like to open it up to some questions.
Thanks to all of you on the panel for being so vulnerable. My question to all of you is, how has being signed with a talent agent or not being signed with a talent agent impacted your career?
It really depends on the agent. It truly does, because you can sign with I've known clients that sign that are with a smaller boutique agency, especially in Los Angeles, they get a decent film, they get a little buzz behind them, they sign with the CAA or William Morris, and they're put in a file because they're actually competition for another client that CAA or William Morris is trying to pitch. On the other hand, I've had clients that, you know, actually sign with bigger agency and start getting the right kind of auditions like we're all talking about. So it's more about that agent than just having an agent.
You know, this is funny. I like this. You know, agents, managers, you know, that they can be exactly what Pat said. But you know, you find somebody that actually cares about your career and like walks you through it and whatnot. And my manager, my old manager, who moved out of LA about 3 years ago, just showed up unexpectedly here. Wow. And that's what you want. You know, it's like it's not enough just to have a suit. And you know, sometimes you just need something on the to put on your resume, because it does. You need an agent, you need a manager, you need something. You know, as just somebody fonzing you and you know putting the leather jacket and being like, hey, I think this kid's cool. You know, whatever. But if you can find somebody who will show up at your actors panel, you know, 3 years after he's represented you, that's kind of what you need.
Thank you, but it helps if you're talented.
And talent, well, that goes without saying. I'm on the panel, Paul. Okay?
I don't know much about dating, but I assume that a relationship with an agent, at least with how it's been for me, is I kind of treat it like that. If it's not working for me, I'm not going to stay in a bad relationship. You know, I'm going to find someone who is excited about what I have to bring to the table, someone who can visualize how to pitch me properly, someone who really wants to, who cares, and is not just trying to take on every client and see what sticks. So I would treat it, as you go on, treat it like a relationship and really check in on it. And don't just let well enough alone, you know what I mean?
An agent manager takes 10, 15%, so they're really only responsible for 10 or 15% of the work, no matter who they are. And so you can submit and do your own work as well, but it's nice to have somebody in your corner as well.
I have a kind of a question for you as far as your approach to your auditions. Do you have like your own certain way that you do that? And do you have any funny stories to...
Listen, I don't know much about dating, but I want to say it's probably a lot like that. You know what I mean? Don't overstay your welcome. Leave them wanting more, that sort of thing. But you don't have to, you get delusions of like, I got to do some huge button on the end where I'm like, waka waka, and they're like, that guy was great. You don't need that. I mean, it depends on the role you're going in for. Television, you're going in for a co-star, keep it absolutely simple and do nothing more. Guest star, show that you're competent, and then keep it simple. It's as simple as that, and just being yourself and what you have to offer. As far as audition technique, plenty of books, plenty of teachers. You know, you got to read through tons to find out what works for you. But I would say keeping it simple is probably rule one. And you may think, I'm not doing anything in there, and that's probably good.
Yeah, well, most jobs literally are hit your mark, say your line, and get out of George Clooney's way. You know what I mean? If you have the opportunity to audition for the George Clooney role, then yeah, you know, you should, you know, do whatever you have to do to get the part. But with the exception to that, this is the thing that I want to say, there's this funny thing going on in LA and New York right now, I think, called Worst Audition Ever. And they get these, you know, successful actors, and they go and they tell stories, because everybody's got stories. So based on those stories, I would say, don't ever hit anybody. No matter, you know, I'm gonna do it for emphasis. Don't knock anything over. Don't bring a gun into auditions, even if it's a play one. What else?
There's tons.
There's so many of them. There's so many.
You know, the most important thing I like to think is relax, listen, and react. That's your most important job in there. If you can just remember those 3 words, you're in a good place.
Also, don't kiss the casting director.
Right.
I had a guy lunge across the table and lay one on me. And if you were better looking, it would have been okay.
You got to pick your battles. It's like dating.
We talked a lot about relationships and how that's really important. One of the most important relationships is an actor and the director. Have you ever worked with a particularly difficult director? And any tips on that? Because it is a business workplace, so sometimes you have to work with people that you don't adore.
Yeah, how do you work with someone that you don't like?
You know, I just worked with Paul, so...
I worked with a director that I don't like. I mean, we thought we liked each other, and then it just turns out we didn't work well together.
So it was like a relationship?
Yeah, kind of like a relationship. It's like that. So towards the end, it got really, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, maybe I shouldn't be talking about this, but well, here we are. Yeah, towards the end of the shoot, we had about a week and a half left, and that last week and a half dragged on for what seemed like months, because we could barely talk to each other, and it was over a misunderstanding, and I wanted to make amends, and he wasn't having it, and it just created such terrible. And this was a couple years ago, so and we haven't made up. So there's no good ending to that story. I'm sorry.
But you're right. It happens all the time. I feel like, and I mean, everybody's got stories. Maybe it's not even you that's not getting along with the director. Maybe it's somebody else, but the set is like toxic, And it's like, that sucks. That's obviously not the way you want it to be, but it's also your job, And I don't know. I don't think there's any good answer. I think it's like relationships, and that you have to be willing to pivot and figure out what it takes, because it's your job, and it's either like, if I've had trouble with cast before, and I've never had that kind of trouble with cast, I've had trouble with people in crew, and our rule in my little circle is, if it's cancerous, kill it. Get it over with quickly, and I think that's something that a lot of actors aren't aware of, is that sometimes the easiest thing is to replace you. And you need to always remember that, you've got skin in the game, so you always think about that when you toe the line and fight it out. It's like, is it worth this job? Because it may be, and it may be worth it, but that's definitely always on the table.
All right, well, we're going to have to wrap this up so we can get on to our next panel, but I just want you guys to give a big round of applause for our wonderful